January 23, 1961. The Cold War is at its freezing point. In the Oval Office, John F. Kennedy has been president for only 3 days. The world is a powder keg, and the United States maintains a 24-hour airborne alert, keeping nuclear-armed bombers in the sky at all times to deter a Soviet strike. But on this dark, winter night over the quiet fields of North Carolina, the greatest threat to American survival wasn't a Russian missile. It was a fuel leak. A massive B-52 Stratofortress, call sign Tulloch 10, was cruising at 10,000 feet. On board were 8 crewmen and 2 Mark 39 thermonuclear bombs. Each of these bombs carried a yield of nearly 4 megatons. To put that in perspective, a single one of these weapons was roughly 250 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. If they detonated, the resulting firestorm would have incinerated everything within a 15-mile radius and sent lethal radioactive fallout drifting as far north as New York City and Washington, D.C. As the bomber rendezvoused with a flying tanker for a routine mid-air refueling, the tanker crew noticed something terrifying. Fuel was gushing from the B-52's right wing. The mission was immediately aborted, and the pilot, Major Walter Scott Tulloch, was ordered to hold his position off the coast until the fuel was low enough to attempt a landing. But the leak was too aggressive. Within minutes, the aircraft became nearly impossible to control. As they turned back towards Seymour Johnson Air Force Base in Goldsboro, the wing began to disintegrate. At 9,000 feet, the order was given. Bail out. 5 crew members managed to eject or jump to safety. 2 others would tragically die in the crash, and 1 would not survive the descent. But as the plane spun wildly toward the Earth, centrifugal forces and structural failures triggered the bomb release mechanism. The fuselage snapped in two, and the 2 slumbering giants, the Mark 39 nuclear bombs, slipped out of the shattered bay and began their fall toward the sleeping farms below. This is where the story shifts from a tragic aviation accident to a brush with total annihilation. The 2 bombs did not behave the same way. The first bomb acted exactly as it was designed to do in a time of war. Its internal sensors detected that it had been released. Its pilot chute deployed, followed by its main 100-foot parachute. It drifted gracefully through the night air, its internal mechanisms clicking through the arming sequence. By the time it struck the ground, 3 of its 4 arming stages had been completed. It landed upright in a field, its nose buried just slightly in the soft Carolina soil, its parachute snagged in the branches of a tree. When recovery teams arrived, they found the bomb's arm-safe switch had moved to the arm position. Only one final, simple low-voltage switch had failed to trigger, preventing the firing signal from reaching the core. The second bomb took a more violent path. It fell in a freefall, tumbling through the air without its parachute deploying. It slammed into a swampy meadow at nearly 700 miles per hour, disintegrating on impact. The force was so great that the weapon buried itself deep into the muddy earth. In the days that followed, the military launched a massive excavation project, digging through the muck to recover the pieces. They found the high explosives. They found the parachute. But as they dug deeper and deeper into the waterlogged ground, they made a chilling discovery. The secondary core, the part of the bomb responsible for the massive thermonuclear explosion, was missing. It had driven itself so deep into the subterranean layers of the swamp that it could not be recovered. To this day, the Air Force has never found it. They eventually bought an easement for the land, fenced it off, and left the radioactive heart of the weapon buried forever beneath the North Carolina mud. For decades, the government maintained that there was never any danger of a nuclear detonation. They claimed the safety measures were redundant and foolproof. But in 2013, a Freedom of Information Act request revealed a 1969 report written by Parker Jones, a senior engineer at Sandia National Laboratories. The title of the document was Goldsboro Revisited. His conclusion was far more terrifying than the official story. Jones wrote that the Mark 39 bomb did not possess adequate safety for the B-52 airborne alert role. He pointed out that when the plane broke up, the wires were severed in a way that mimicked a human operator's command to arm the weapon. Of the 4 safety mechanisms designed to prevent an accidental blast, 2 were rendered useless by the fall. The third was a simple pressure switch that worked exactly as intended, thinking it was being dropped over a target. That left only the 4th switch, a basic manual toggle. One single, solitary switch, likely damaged by the shock of the breakup, was all that prevented a multi-megaton explosion in the heart of the American South. Jones's words were haunting. The Mark 39 Mod 2 bomb did not possess adequate safety. One lower voltage switch stood between the United States and a major catastrophe. Think about that. If that final switch had been just a bit more sensitive, or if the airframe had twisted just a few degrees differently during the breakup, the history of the United States would have been split into 2 eras. Before and after the Goldsboro blast, the fallout would have blanketed the East Coast. Tens of thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands, would have died instantly. The political fallout would have been equally devastating, potentially forcing the U.S. to dismantle its nuclear deterrent at the height of the struggle with the Soviet Union. The Goldsboro incident is what the military calls a broken arrow, an unexpected event involving nuclear weapons that does not create the risk of war. But it was the closest of calls. It serves as a stark reminder of the hidden risks of the Cold War, where the very weapons meant to protect the nation nearly became its undoing. Today, if you drive through the rural roads of Wayne County, North Carolina, you'll find a simple historical marker. It mentions the crash and the loss of the crew, but it doesn't mention the switch. It doesn't mention the buried core still sitting beneath the soil nearby. As we look back at this moment in history, we are forced to reckon with the fragility of our systems. We like to believe that we are in total control of our most powerful technologies, but the night over Goldsboro proves that sometimes our survival doesn't depend on genius engineering or brilliant leadership. Sometimes it depends on a single, tiny, miraculous switch that refuses to move. The pilots of Tulloch 10 were heroes who stayed with their aircraft as long as they could. The recovery teams worked in the freezing mud to secure a site that could have been a wasteland. And the rest of us, we lived on, unaware for 50 years that we were just one electrical pulse away from a nightmare. The next time you look at a quiet, empty field, remember that history isn't just in the books. Sometimes it's buried right beneath your feet, silent, secret, and waiting.